Hello, world history students. This is Mrs. Politsky, and I have your notes over Buddhism. So, a while back, we had taken a look at this map, talking a little bit about different religious groups and where they're at or kind of dominate in the world. And if you take a look at your key down below here, Buddhism, for the most part, is really dominant in parts of present day Eastern Asia. So like China, parts of Japan, parts of Southeast Asia. This is where it kind of takes root. But its origins are not necessarily in that part of the world. Buddhism actually kind of started in India. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that. And we're going to start with our two images that we have here on the screen. Both are of Siddhartha Gautama, who eventually becomes the Buddha. But as a young man, he was a very wealthy young man. His parents were nobility. He was a prince, and he kind of lived a sheltered life. He was deeply affected when he realized that suffering in life was a real problem for a lot of people, especially those people who weren't as privileged as he was. And he resolved to figure out a way to overcome suffering. And this led to the beginnings of Buddhism. And so in this search, he began looking for this concept called enlightenment. And the story goes is that he sat under a tree and he started meditating. And as he meditated, he was really focused and became very emaciated, meaning that he hadn't eaten for some time. He got super skinny, as you can see kind of in these two illustrations here. But in this time, meditating, searching for, the answer, this enlightenment, he lived in the forest, he begged for food, and he began to study with an individual called a guru. Guru is like a kind of a spiritual guide, or a name for that. When we talk about it, maybe in terms of Catholicism, we talk about maybe having a spiritual director or a spiritual advisor who could be a priest or maybe a religious sister who probably helps you kind of figure out how to pray better, maybe how to be more tuned in to the scriptures. Well, Buddha kind of needed the same thing, and he was using a guru to kind of help him focus and meditate. So, while he's meditating, he discovered the ideas of the Four Noble Truths. And the Four Noble Truths are the following. First, suffering. It's a part of human life. You can't escape it. You're always going to be faced with it. Number two, suffering comes from people's desires, mostly for pleasure and for material goods. So I think by human nature, we're always wanting something. And sometimes when we satisfy that desire, new ones pop up. And so it's a constant cycle of suffering until you get what you want. Okay? And the third one, overcoming these desires during life will bring suffering to an end. In other words, trying to kind of figure out how not to want things is kind of what this is all about. And then finally, desires can be overcome by following the Eightfold Path, which we're going to talk about next. So let's talk about the Eightfold Path. Okay, so here are the 8 things that you would need to do. Okay, first, you need to have the right view. Okay, right view is like the right vision, the right set of mind, and this is part of accepting the Four Noble Truths. Second, you have to have the right attitude. So you got to strive for moderation, knowing, when too much is too much. Third, having the right speech, avoiding telling lies, avoiding being too boastful or saying things that could be hurtful. Okay, you got to think about what you're saying before you say it. Number 4, the right action. Are you treating others fairly? Are you being just? Okay. Number 5, the right livelihood. This is like what you're doing for a living. Are you avoiding jobs that could bring harm to other people? Number 6, the right effort. Are you trying to improve yourself? Are you making the right effort to make that happen? Are you, kind of focusing what you need to be focusing on? That's what that effort is. Number 7, the right mindfulness, remaining aware of the world around you. And then finally, the right concentration, ignoring temptations, ignoring having discomfort when you're meditating. Can you overcome those kind of things? And if you can, then you can move on to the ultimate. Okay? If you've accomplished the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path, there's a state of perfect peace. Okay? When the soul is free from suffering, and that is called nirvana. Okay? And that achieving of that is not an easy thing. It might take an entire lifetime. For some people who are maybe a little bit more in tune and can meet the demands of the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path, they might be able to attain it sooner. Okay? So, to express the Eightfold Path and to advise people to live in moderation, avoiding extremes of comfort and discomfort in the search of nirvana, this is called the middle way. And that's kind of the quest that many Buddhists are kind of on. So, in number 8, according to Buddha, those who don't attain nirvana are reborn to live through the life cycles of suffering again and again and again until they get it right. So, there are 3 main forms of Buddhism. The first one is Theravada. This is the old tradition that teaches there's an individual path to enlightenment. You have Mahayana, which is a form of Buddhism that teaches that you can help other people find enlightenment. In other words, you can find kind of a guide to make that happen. And then finally, the third form is Tibetan. This teaches that one can use special techniques to achieve nirvana within a single lifetime. So, and number 10, Theravada Buddhism, it believes that the best way to achieve nirvana is to become a monk or a nun. And you're going to spend your entire day basically in meditation. So we got a couple of pictures down below here of some Buddhist monks who are doing just that. Okay, they live in a monastery. They pretty much have given up all their worldly possessions. They're just going to focus on meditating. Okay. The Mahayana Buddhists, they worship basically what they call bodhisattvas. These are individuals who have found enlightenment. Okay. As a matter of fact, you could seek them out to kind of help you find, enlightenment, thus you could achieve your nirvana. A man named Ashoka, who you see pictured kind of down below in the lower right-hand corner, he affected the spread of Buddhism because, one, he was, from India. He became a Buddhist. He converted. And under his rule, Buddhism spread throughout his empire, throughout India. Eventually, it's going to seep into places like Asia, like Southeast Asia. Okay? He would eventually send missionaries to convert others to the faith. Buddhism spread through Central Asia, Southeast Asia, eventually to Korea and Japan. Traders from Central and Southeast Asia, they were able to bring Buddhism to China. So Ashoka, he is kind of like one of the first missionaries of the faith. So he's kind of like the St. Paul of Buddhism, I guess, is probably the best way to explain it. So if you take a look at the map, you can kind of see some different examples of Buddhism in different parts of the world. Just so you understand, even though Buddhism made it as far west as Afghanistan, as Islam kind of rises to power around the year 600, the number of people who follow Buddhism is going to start diminishing, and it's going to be kind of more, the faith is going to be more dominant maybe towards, the South China Sea. So thank you very much, and have a good day.